Well, it's good to change position now and again, isn't it? Anyway, so um, hmm, okay, let's start again.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that, Gwynnie. So that's amputations covered. Quite a heavy subject, I know. You had a few other complications with your diabetes and things going forwards, and quite not that long ago, I believe. Do you wanna tell us what happened there?
Yeah. I had what's it they call them these days? A myocardial infarction in January 2018 was the first one. In other words, a major heart attack, rushed with blue lights and sirens up to the local hospital where I had 3 stents inserted in my heart. Unfortunately, I also had an allergic reaction to the contrast dye that they used. And it resulted in me being on fluid replacement therapy for my kidneys, in other words, emergency dialysis, through a cannula in my neck, which was lovely.
Is that called a PIC line? Is that called a PIC line? The one in the neck, PIC line?
I don't know. It wasn't. It's not permanent. It was something they had to do, you know, in an emergency. I think if they have to put it in permanently, they call it a PIC line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was yeah, in intensive care for 10 days. Just as I was supposed to submit an assignment for my university degree. Yeah, it was all fun and games, yes. But yeah. I've since had 3 smaller attacks, but nothing requiring the same amount of intervention, shall we say. And basically within a couple of days, I'm fine dandy and whizzing about the hospital in my wheelchair again. So yes.
I do think I remember you talking about the last one on Twitter, and you said, I've had a heart attack, I'm in hospital. And then you were tweeting like normal throughout a couple of days, and then you went, I've come back out of the hospital, I'm fine. And it was nothing. It was just
It's
like
really bizarre, wasn't it?
It's like a weekend for you.
Yeah, it was mid-COVID. Yeah, 5 days in. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm fine. Let me out of here. Yeah.
Thanks for the fluids. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
That's what I always say anyway.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. Most hospital stays, let me out of here as soon as possible. You know, the quicker I'm up and about, the better. You know, my other half laughs at me when I go in because I'm telling the nurses what to do with my diabetes control. Because these stupid machines, despite the fact that they test your blood, they don't test it at the appropriate times. They test it to a timetable rather than testing it before a meal. You know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon is not when you should be testing blood. That's not the purpose of it. Sorry, I rant over.
Absolutely right, though. I completely agree. Like any time that I've been anywhere and had to like spend some time and they do testing and stuff like that, it is they do it to a timetable, and it's usually in the middle of when you will have like a spike or a dip. So it's not an accurate reading of like where you are in like, you know, being ready for food and stuff like that. So they're saying, oh, you know, you'll need to do like a couple of extra units of insulin. No, I won't, and I'll fight you on it. So, you know, it's absolutely that, isn't it? It's crazy.
I mean, it's strange because I would shout from my bed, I'm doing a blood test if anybody wants to borrow some blood for the machine. You know.
It's just crazy, isn't it?
Because they won't accept the results that you're taking on your blood machine because it's not calibrated the same as their machine.
Theirs, yeah.
Oh, it drives me to distraction, it does. And then you end up, you end up with a GK and they put you on a sliding scale and they test your blood and they think, right, it's 13. And this nurse then went to start the glucose, went, you what? Don't you dare think of giving me glucose. Not at 13. I want off this sliding scale now. I can control it better. 13 is too high to be giving me glucose.
Yeah.
And I was almost as polite as that.
Almost. Do you know, I can imagine it, Gwynnie. I can just see it now. When just going back to your first heart attack, so you'd had the heart attack, you'd had the stents put in. So as far as your heart was concerned, it was fixed and okay.
Yep.
So the issue then was the allergic reaction to the dye.
Yes.
Has that left you with any permanent kidney issues?
As it was, my kidneys were functioning at 30%. So I knew I had a kidney issue and I'd been under the renal consultant for a couple of years. I'm now at 22% at the moment, which means I'm in chronic kidney disease stage 5, but I'm not on dialysis. After I had the heart attack, the big heart attack, they did look at possibly a living donor. My daughter offered, bless her cotton socks, to give me a kidney. Unfortunately, her antibodies didn't match mine. So she was ruled out. If things get that bad again, I have another family member that has stepped up and said, yeah, I'm willing to go through the test, because it is quite a major workup to have the test to be both a donor and a recipient.
Right.
You tend not to go on the donor list until your kidney function is down at 8%.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and as low as that, yeah.
And at that point, you would be on dialysis and things.
They tend to look at dialysis when you're at 18%.
Right. Okay.
But my kidney function, yes, it takes a dip when I have a heart attack, but it recovers, which is unusual for kidneys, apparently.
Okay.
Because yes, when I had the big heart attack, it was down at the 8% mark,
Right.
but it recovered up to about 25, 26%. So yeah, I go with the flow, if it happens, it happens, I'll face that bridge when I cross that bridge when I come to it. No point worrying about it, it's,
Yeah, I was going to say, are you of that mindset that there's really not anything you can do about it, so we'll just deal with it when it happens, kind of thing? Yeah. Don't worry about the what ifs.
No, there's no point worrying about the what ifs. They'll give you grey hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got enough of that.
Bless Paul, you don't have to worry about that at all. He's smooth like a sausage.
I think you've got an amazingly positive outlook on it, Gwynnie.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do sort of day to day that keeps you positive, that keeps you focused, and in your usual good positive ways? What do you do? What do you get up to that keeps you happy, except for beating me at fantasy football and GB Dolphins?
I sing in a choir, and they have recently restarted Zoom practices, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, and yes, it's a choir that does major pieces of work. So usually we sing Messiah every Christmas, which is not going to happen this year, and we're all missing it terribly, but looking forward to possibly next Christmas and singing it again. But yeah, I knit. I'm trying to attempt to learn to crochet. Given still, the jury's still out on that one as to whether I'm being successful. Yeah. And I'm studying my final year of my psychology degree, so yes, that's got a major impact this year. And yeah, and I do bits and pieces. You know, I play a few games on my phone, games on my iPad, and you know, I try and distract myself. I read. I have actually found time to actually read for pleasure at the moment, which was something that went out the window for the first couple of years doing my degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes.
What kind of stuff do you like reading?
I like crime thrillers.
Yeah.
I'm currently on Jo Nesbo. I'm currently reading the how do you pronounce it? Hule? It's written as Harry Hole, but I think it's pronounced Hule because yeah, that's Norwegian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And how does your just with we've said briefly about Wales have had this fire break for the COVID and what have you. How have you found your diabetes has been recently? Like, has it been affected by it? You know, when you get stressed, has it caused any issues? Or I can imagine you getting particularly stressed, Gwynnie, to be honest.
You should have seen me in March. Yeah, when this all first started to kick off the beginning of March, I was terrified. I couldn't study, couldn't go near my desk. If I went to try and even think about it, I was a quivering wreck. I was in tears with it all. The anxiety around it all just was nuts. And I basically had to step away and say, right, okay. I don't think it helped that I was watching the news 24 hours a day.
Oh, yes.
But, you know, that's how things were. I decided, you know, they announced this sort of, that they were possibly going to ask people with long-term conditions to shield themselves. I basically stopped going into shops a week before they made the announcement, not knowing whether I would be shielded or not. And yeah, it turned out I would be, but I was one of those unfortunate ones in Wales where the shielding letter that was issued went to an incorrect address. So I didn't actually know officially that I was supposed to be shielding until the beginning of May.
Oh.
Yeah. It was more a letter from the council and Tesco's emailing me to say we've added you onto our vulnerable shoppers list. Right, okay. Oh, I take it I'm supposed to be shielding then. Right, okay. But I'd already decided to take that step anyway. So in a sense, I was ahead of what was coming. I could see what was coming. So basically took the step myself to take a step back, not go into shops, you know, basically just to distance myself from any bugger. Of course, at that point, my partner was still going to the office to work. So I was so when they did shut everything down, I breathed a sigh of relief. It became a little bit less anxiety and promoting for me the fact that he wasn't traveling in public transport and possibly catching anything and bringing it home.
Yeah.
I think like the big difficulty with it is because when you're shielding or staying at home more, because obviously I haven't really shielded, but I don't go out, I don't do anything if I'm not at work. So the big thing that you'll probably agree with me, I don't know if I'm right or not for you guys, but you are just watching the news all the time because you want to see if there's something new. Like, you know, they're all talking about like a vaccine now and things like that, but you're constantly watching it for the glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
And then that's not arriving. So instead of the glimmer of hope, you're anxiety is being reinforced again and again and again every day. And it's just so much like, you know, like you were saying, you couldn't go to your desk and do work and stuff like that. Obviously, as like a group, there's obviously other people in it and stuff, but we all helped do like the house chat and stuff like that. And I completely freaked out at one point during the pandemic, and I had to just stop talking to everybody and stop really engaging on my Twitter, and I stopped doing this, and I left all of the chats and everything. I couldn't do anything anymore because I was so wrapped up in what was going on outside that I couldn't even focus on the nice things that were inside. It's crazy to get to that point. Like, and I think now that it's gone on for so long, we can all see that there's a bit, you can do more, you can do things like this and talk about it and stuff, but kind of forget the implications of what's going on, because we've settled, there's a bit of breathing room, which is like a bit more of a nice thing, I think. Like, despite it being still a horrible situation to be in, it's a little bit more comforting that we can kind of go, oh, so, you know, I'll throw myself into reading for pleasure and, you know, all that sort of stuff, which is a nicer thing to do. So yeah, it's, I totally get like how you couldn't do anything like that at one point during the lockdown, because I was almost exactly the same. So yeah, it was very, very difficult.
It was slightly different because the module I was doing last year was on social psychology.
Yeah.
I was watching the news more with a social psychologist head on, watching the language that was being used, watching how they were handling the situation. I follow one of the independent sage people on Twitter. Stephen Reicher is a social psychologist, and it's part of what, and this is one of the things that I'm using now in my own research, small research project for this year's, the language that the press used around underlying health conditions, how they were reporting that. And it was feeding my student brain, but at the same time triggering my health anxiety. It was a strange situation.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I can imagine. And it's with, when you, particularly when you had that anxiety where you couldn't do your studying and things, were you still engaging, did you find, with your diabetes, or was you didn't sort of feel, oh, COVID's taken over everything and sort of diabetes was a side issue type of thing? Or did it make you focus more on your diabetes even?
No, I'd say that I've been through the phase where I didn't want to know it. I hit then drastically in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
And yeah, these days I'm much more engaged with, it's almost an automatic response to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Whether it's because I've done it for so long, I don't know. Or whether it's just a case of, yeah, it's become a second nature that I don't fret about, okay, the numbers are high, oh, what am I going to do about it? Nah, it's just one of those things, let it ride, correct, move on, you know, just let it go. It's a bad number. It doesn't really, it's not going to affect things in the great scheme of.
Yeah.
So just before we come to a conclusion, Gwynnie, I think we've covered quite a lot in just one chat today. As you said, you've had type 1 for 45 years.
Yep.
It's a fair mileage on the clock, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice, any tips? And I think you may have just given some advice there. You know, a single number doesn't particularly mean anything. But have you got any advice, any tips that you can give to somebody that's maybe new to type 1 diabetes, newly diagnosed? What would you say to them?
Don't fret. It's more a case of don't panic. Take each day as it comes. Don't start to get bogged down by counting carbs and knowing exactly what you're eating. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. It's correctable. It doesn't, you know, it's, yeah, it's not the end of the world if you have a 13 or a 14. It really isn't. You know, you can sort it. It may take a little time to sort sometimes, but it's not something to panic over.
Yeah.
You know,
it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's quite a fine balance between keeping it in control for your long-term health, etc.,
yeah.
and not letting it take over your life.
Yeah.
It's quite a balancing act, isn't it?
Yes, and you have to learn to think, oh, okay, yes, I'll do my numbers, you know, I got my CGM, I got my pump, I prick my fingers to calibrate, you know, every 2 or 3 times a day. I think, yeah, okay, oh, I've got a high one. Okay, that's correct. Let's move on. Don't panic about it. You know, these things happen. It is not a simple disease to keep in control, and don't ever let anybody tell you it is. Don't ever let anybody say you're doing that badly. No, you're doing the best you damn well can with the information you get. So give yourself some slack.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you, Gwynnie. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You've been our first video podcast guest, and it's been amazing to talk to you. So thanks for coming along. I'm sure we'll catch up again.
My pleasure.
Soon on a quiz and on Twitter.
Yeah.
Can I just say about the quiz? I just want to quickly say that Gwynnie jointly won the last quiz, and she drew the short straw because she jointly won it with me. I don't know how that happened. I don't know, but so yeah, I cheated. Yeah, so the two of us are hosting the one in December, which I think is on the 10th of December. It's the second Thursday in December.
Yeah,
so
my anniversary.
So we're going to have some really difficult questions that obviously Gwynnie will be setting, and some really easy ones that I will be setting. So you know, if you want to come and join in, then just drop us your Zoom email and we'll add you in. But it should be a fun one because it's going to be a Christmassy one. There'll be some Christmas rounds. So yeah, it should be good. So, and Gwynnie will test your brains.
Polish off your baubles, Harvey. Have you got anything you want to spam before we sign off?
No, well, I haven't got anything to spam, but I have been told that I need to show my t-shirt today.
Yay, I love that t-shirt so
because obviously I'm extremely queer and everybody needs to know it. So have a lovely gay day. That's it. That's all I've got to spam today. That's it.
Best spam ever.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a gay day, as Harvey says, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.